Good afternoon. This is ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. I'm your host, Alice Lee Hagen. Today we're going to showcase a seminar program here at the East-West Center, and the name of the seminar is Changing Faces and Women Leadership Seminar. My guest here is Liz Dorn, the program coordinator for East-West Center seminars. Prior to moving to Hawaii, she was a program associate with the East-West Center in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Liz, for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the East-West Center. Mm-hmm. I know that it was established by the U.S. Congress in 1960, and from what I've read, the center is intended to promote better understanding relations among people and nations in the U.S., Asia, and the Pacific. Now, it's a really impressive organization. You just told me that there are over 62,000 alumni, and you have partnership with organizations, over almost 1,000 organizations. Mm-hmm. And looking at your website, I know that you have different EWC or East-West Center chapter from Canada to Australia, and from Yangon in Myanmar to New York in the U.S. So, and of course, East-West Center was involved recently, perhaps not so recently, in the 2011 APEC Leadership Summit. Excuse me, APEC stands for the
Asia Pacific Economic
Thank you. So, and then of course the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had come here on several occasions to give presentations. Mm-hmm. So tell us more about the East-West Center then.
Well, so the East-West Center does its work through 4 different major functions. The first one is education, which most folks are aware of. Among other things, they offer scholarships and student residencies to Americans and international graduate students at the University of Hawaii. They also offer K through 12 teacher exchanges. And then there's our research department, which engages in policy relevant research in topics like economics, environment, health. And there's the Pacific Islands Development Program, which works with Pacific Island leaders to ensure equitable and sustainable development. And that program is actually really unique in terms of think tanks, because it's the East-West Center is one of the only think tanks in the world that has a Pacific Islands focus. In addition to those 3 focus, there's also seminars, which is my department, and we offer short-term professional dialogue, study, and travel programs for journalists, policymakers, and entrepreneurs. And we do all of this from 2 offices, one located on the 21-acre Honolulu campus, adjacent to, but not part of UH.
I'm glad you clarified that, because that's what a lot of people, when they come to campus and when they pass by East-West Center, they always have fantastic comments about the building, especially about the Japanese garden behind it. Mm-hmm. But of course, people always think that East-West Center is part of the University of Hawaii campus, and I have to say, no, it's not really part of it. So
it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And our other office is a much smaller office in Washington, D.C.
Okay, and yeah, when I was preparing for this interview, I went onto your website, of course, as I mentioned to you. It's always exciting to look at your website because there's so much going on. The journalism fellowship program that you're going to run, and of course, I read about the international conference in Okinawa, and then there's an Asian Studies fellowship in Washington, D.C. So that's amazing. Now let's come back to the seminar that you are going to offer in July. I guess this is not a new issue about women and women being entrepreneurs, and I had a chance to go online very quickly to read up stories about women starting their own business. And it seems that, especially in Asia, it's not an easy thing to do, although they're half of the population, and very often women have to take care of the family and also to make a living. So tell us about the background of Changing Faces.
Okay. Well, Changing Faces was originally launched in 2002 by a former EWC degree student and later a former EWC staff member, Abby Sines. And Abby was really passionate about offering opportunities to women entrepreneurs in the United States and the US, and she was passionate about that issue because she saw a distinct gender gap. And right around the time that she launched this program was the time during Secretary Clinton's first statements about the role of women in Asia and the role of women in entrepreneurship, and there was a real push by the State Department as well as by other organizations to improve women in entrepreneurship. And what we see in terms of statistics and research is that women are joining colleges and and graduate school at much higher numbers than men today, but we don't see that reflected in them starting businesses. They're certainly engaged in the workforce, but they're not as engaged in beginning and launching their own businesses.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think there are a lot of factors, and it really depends on the country that you're talking about. I think one of the common denominators across countries and cultures is the fact that women are still seen as the primary caregiver for families and spouses. And so there's more of a demand for women to balance their work and their personal lives than there are for men even today. And I think a lot of women choose not to start businesses because it's riskier. And I think that's beginning to change. I think that's true both in the US and in Asia, but I think culturally, I think that's something that is a commonality.
Earlier on before the program, you were talking about different regions, and you alluded to them depends on which country.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
can you perhaps share that with our audience?
Sure. When you're looking at Northeast Asia, you find that the women who are starting industries look very similar to the same in terms of the industries that they're starting, as well as the women themselves look very similar to what you might find here in the US, particularly in urban centers in the United States. If you're looking at Southeast Asia or the Pacific Islands, what you find is that the women are starting industries that are more craft-based or more sole proprietorships that are based outside of their home or through a community center where many women gather and run businesses. And so it really depends sort of on what cultural environment you're working in.
Okay. Tell us, how long has this program been around then?
Like I said, it was launched in 2002. We took a brief hiatus from 2011 to right now, but this will be our 10th iteration.
Okay, and over this 10-year period, or a little bit over a 10-year period, what are some of the changes that you've noticed when you offer this program?
Well, the first thing is, so Abby had envisioned this seminar as actually a one-week seminar with different thematic, based around a different theme every year. She also envisioned her program to include early to mid-career professionals from the public, private, and nonprofit sector in thematically relevant careers. Over time, the program has evolved to from a one-week program to a 12-day program with travel, inclusive of travel, and it's also evolved from a varying thematic program to one that is currently based around women as innovators and entrepreneurs, generating job creation and strengthening communities. And my colleague Ann Hartman and I sort of began this move towards our more consistent, our current focus in 2009.
Okay.
And we did that in part because we looked closely at the resources here in Hawaii, and we felt like Hawaii offered two reasons to make that change. The first is Hawaii has very strong examples of entrepreneurship particularly small to medium-sized entrepreneurship in fields like agriculture, clean technology, private-public partnerships, communications, and human resource services. In addition, Hawaii also suffers or faces the same sort of challenges that many of the Asian countries our women hail from also face. Things like infrastructure, transportation, labor challenges, and and communication too.
So when these women come to this program, do you know if they may have had taken similar programs in their home country? Are there similar programs in different parts of Asia similar to yours?
There isn't a similar program to the East-West Center's model available in the Asia-Pacific region, but certainly many of the women have been involved in some sort of leadership training. So I actually just reviewed the pre-arrival questionnaires for our 2014 in Changing Faces cohort, and of the 13 women that will be participating in the 2014 program, I would say about half have participated in previous leadership seminars. Some of those leadership seminars are programs that their employer has put together, other like a one-day program. Others are more formal, several-day programs that international NGO has put together and they've applied for and were accepted for. And others have either gone through maybe an MBA program or went to school for human resources, so they have some background in leadership development.
Now, you said you just reviewed their pre-arrival questionnaire. Tell us about the profile of these women who would be coming.
Okay. To date, we've had 113 women participate from 27 different countries in the Changing Faces Women's Leadership Seminar, and women from Asia, the Pacific Islands, and the United States with 7 to 15 years of work experience are eligible. And the application process is pretty competitive. We average about 80 applications for 10 to 14 spots a year. And the women are selected based on their demonstrated leadership in past and current positions, as well as their ability to affect change and influence others in their community. So we're really looking for women who are not just business entrepreneurs, but are also either active in their communities or are business and social entrepreneurs. And so the profile of our women tend to be to include both business entrepreneurs, pure business entrepreneurs, with some community activism, social entrepreneurs, people who are starting nonprofits or in some way building their communities and strengthening their communities, and then also public sector women who are engaged in the creation of jobs and in strengthening communities.
For a lot of these women who apply, I presume they get a lot of support from, say, their employers for coming to this program, or do you know anything about that?
Well, do you mean financial support, or
do you require them to send a reference letter from their employer? Yeah.
Yes, when a woman applies for the Changing Faces program, she's asked to submit several things. One, an application form must be completed. We also asked her to write a statement of interest, and in that interest, we ask her, what does she hope to achieve by participating? What does she think she'll bring? What specific project is she interested in implementing upon her return home, because an action plan is an integral part of the program. And we also ask them to submit 2 letters of reference, both professional. We ask for one of those letters to be either a supervisor or someone, if it's a cell phone business, someone maybe that the business has worked for or with.
Now, how many applied this year? Or I should say maybe over the last 10 years, what's your average application? What does that look like?
An average application pool is about 80. This year, because we've taken a little bit of a hiatus, we saw almost 70.
Oh, okay. Anything memorable from reading through all these statements of objectives?
Yes, actually. I was telling you earlier before we started that one of the terms that one of our women used in her application, and she was accepted, is the term mompreneur. And that's a term that we'd never heard before that sort of captivated all of the selection committee. And there are 3 people who sit on that committee, myself, my colleague, Ann Hartman, and a local business entrepreneur here in Hawaii is the 3rd person.
Do you see that over the years the criteria of accepting people into the program may have changed? Can you tell us about that?
A little bit. When the program was based off of an evolving theme, there was, depending on the theme, it might be possible that the women selected were more representative of the nonprofit world and might specifically of certain topics. So, for instance, in 2008, the program was based on conflict resolution and negotiation. And so that year we saw mostly nonprofit and public sector applicants. And many of them were involved in negotiating gender issues or making certain that gender issues were forefront and center in conflicts such as those in Mindanao or other areas in Asia where there's civil unrest. That's not a profile that we still see today.
Okay, okay.
So it did depend. When their theme changed, we saw a great deal more variety of women. Now we see, like I said, mostly business and social entrepreneurs, but the types of businesses that are represented are across the board.
Oh, okay.
So this year, for instance, we have a New Zealand participant who launched a crowdfunding website in New Zealand, and she has raised money for over 500 organizations successfully, and she started only 3 years ago.
What kind of projects are these type of funding for then?
Small projects. She actually, so the women to participate in the Changing Faces seminar, East West Center provides the funding for them to be here, but we ask the participants to contribute in terms of purchasing their own round-trip airfare to and from Honolulu. And for many, this is a really significant cost. If they're coming from New Zealand, like Anna is coming from, it's well over $1,000 or more to get here. And we think that that's evidence of the program's value. But Anna, because she was responsible for that cost, put herself on her website and crowd-funded her airfare to Honolulu.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Which I think is amazing.
Yes.
It meant that her public thought that the program was so valuable that they were willing to fund her airfare to Hawaii so she could participate. And I think that's an amazing example.
And also this is a great way to talk about the East West Center and your programs too.
Yeah.
Wow. Are there particular regions where you get more applications?
Yes. The East West Center is extremely well known in Asia. We have enormous name recognition and our fellowships across the board, whether they're education-based or research or seminars-based, are considered to be very prestigious. So we see a lot of applicants from the Philippines, India, China, Japan, Pakistan, for some of our programs. This program, because it's known to take more small and medium-sized entrepreneurs, gets applicants from all over the region. We actually had an applicant this year for the first time from the Maldives.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Can you kind of tell us a little, Maldives, where is it in the world?
Also in Asia. It's, I'm not certain. I believe it's in South Asia.
Okay.
So it's a small island nation that actually is suffering from climate change.
Okay.
beautiful. Many people holiday there.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe when we come back from the break, you can tell us more about the alumni that you've had for this program. You said you've had over 100 of them, and perhaps some of the achievements.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. Let's take a break. My guest here is Liz Dorn from the East-West Center. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Martin Despang, and I'm the host together with the one and only Ali Amashta, and our show is called Urban Transcendence. And Urban Transcendence is about identifying where we have a unique situation of a vibrant city in one of the most beautiful natural environments. So how these two can coincide, sometimes conflict, how they could find reciprocity in the 21st century is what we're excited about. And we're planning on bringing in a diverse body of guests, both from the arts and the science and the established and the wise and the emerging generation. So hope you will join us. We'll always be on Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you.
Welcome back. This is Business Education Spotlight. My guest is Liz Dorn from the East-West Center, and we're talking about the Changing Faces and Women Leadership Seminar. Liz, before the break, you talked about the different women who would be participating in this Changing Faces seminar. Truly multinational, but bringing it closer to home. How about, do you get applications from the U.S.?
We do. So out of an average of 80 applications for the Changing Faces seminar, I would say we receive about 8 or 10 from the United States. I know that number seems quite low, but it's not that low when you consider that they're competing for one spot for the Americans. Normally we only take one person from each country, and so it's quite competitive still. This year we see lower numbers than we would like. But again, we think that's due to the hiatus. But we also think that that's due in part because our name recognition in the United States, unfortunately, is not as strong as it is in Asia. And I think a lot of that has to do with us being in Honolulu. Many of our mainland friends and family don't know about us the way that they should. I think it's also true because there are a lot of competing organizations that don't do exactly what we do, but do something similar enough that people aren't quite clear what we do sometimes. And there are just other opportunities for them to apply to.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating. I guess when you told me how, maybe you can share this with the audience, how do you send out, or how do you reach out to all these different countries to let them know about the seminar?
So the East-West Center announces its application periods through several methods. The first one is that we send announcements to all of the U.S. embassies in the region, to their political affairs officer, as well as their cultural affairs officer. And then the U.S. embassies post it on their websites usually, and they might tweet it as well, or retweet our own tweets about the programs. They also share it with their networks. We also send our announcements to our 62,000 alumni, of which I think about 5,000 are regularly active. We also send it to partner organizations that are relevant to the program that we're announcing. And in addition, for the US, we send it to US Chambers of Commerce and the World Affairs Council in about 20 large to medium-sized cities. Finally, it's posted on our website, and we tweet about it, we post it on Facebook, and we hope that people share it. But the biggest factor, I think, for receiving applications for all of our programs, or at least all of our seminars programs, is usually word of mouth.
Yeah, and I guess you do have a lot of alumni in Asia Pacific, and yeah, well, it would be great to see what this cohort is like. But also, I guess, as you said, people here don't really know much about what the East-West Center does. And I was just looking at your notes. Maybe you can share with our viewers about the economic benefit of East-West Center here in Honolulu.
Well, most people think of the East-West Center as a regional or national institution, and we most certainly are. We consider ourselves a regional and national institution, but we also consider ourselves a local institution. And the reason for that is because the East-West Center brings in over $30 million annually to the Hawaii economy. And we do that through grants and through participant expenditures of the people who participate in our programs, but also many of them stay on for longer periods of time and invest in their money in Hawaii's tourism. So for instance, one of our participants in the 2014 Changing Faces program, which will occur in July, is from Vietnam, and she will participate in the 2-week program with Changing Faces, but then her husband is meeting her for a week following the program for holiday.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great way to showcase Hawaii as well. But coming back to your the upcoming cohort, tell us a little bit about what these participants will go through in these 2 weeks.
Changing Faces was really designed off 3 sort of objectives and goals. And the first one is leadership and entrepreneurial training. The second is the formulation and implementation of concrete action plans. And the third is the building of networks. And this is true, we intend this both in terms of the networks between the women themselves, plus the networks with the local Hawaii community, our Changing Faces alum, and our speakers and trainers. So we're really looking to build sort of a community of women leaders that have this shared experience in common and are all committed to growing their economies locally and benefiting their communities.
You're talking about building a community of leaders. Perhaps you can talk about the partnership that you're developing locally for this program.
Yeah. We're really excited about this. So over the years, as we've sort of moved away from the varying thematic design to this consistent emphasis on women as innovators and entrepreneurs, what we realized is that the program was really building the leadership skills of our women, but it wasn't building their entrepreneurial skills. And Anne Hartman, who's my colleague at the East-West Center and the co-coordinator for this program, and I really thought that this was a missed opportunity for the women. And frankly, it was reflected in their summative evaluations as well. So the East-West Center decided to reach out to Scheidler College of Business and invite them to partner with us in order to fill this need. And I'm really excited that they said yes, thrilled to have them on board. So in 2014, for the very first time, we will be able to offer, in partnership with Scheidler, 2 days of training workshops that are specific to entrepreneurial skills. And some of the options that are on the table are things like raising capital and branding, understanding your demographic, and other core entrepreneurial skills. And this will be a first for us, and we're very excited about it. And in looking over the pre-arrival questionnaires that the women have submitted, I would say that's where their lack of knowledge. We asked them to rate their own, to self-assess their knowledge of leadership skills, and then to self-assess their knowledge of entrepreneurial skills. And there was a marked difference between the two.
Well, you know, we appreciate this collaboration too, because as we talked about it earlier on, East-West Center is such a prominent organization. It's good to be associated with a program like that.
We're equally thrilled.
Well, what about other perhaps community partnerships that you have for this program for this year?
For 2014, we're also very proud to be announcing another new feature of the Changing Faces program, and that is a next generation service project. That project will allow Hawaii's local community to benefit from the expertise and experiences of our Changing Faces women. In addition to allowing the local community and enabling exposure of the local community to our women from the Asia-Pacific region and the United States, it also reinforces the leadership skills that are being taught throughout the seminar and provides our women with a model community model of engagement that they can then take home and replicate. And that Next Generation Service Project is being undertaken in partnership with the Sacred Hearts Academy. So we're really excited about that. So our women's expertise will actually be sort of distilled down to the next generation in Hawaii via the students of Sacred Hearts Academy.
So how does that work? So will the women from Changing Faces, would they be working with students from Sacred Heart? Or how would Sacred Heart be selecting the students to participate in the program?
So Sacred Hearts is actually selecting the students themselves. They're doing that, I think, sort of on an invite basis, but it's an open invite. I understand it, but I'm not certain. And there'll be at least 13 girls that will participate because we have 13 women. And we're thinking right now that the format will be sort of a panel discussion with all of the women, and then we'll pair each girl up with one of our Changing Faces women. And in addition to that interaction, that will happen over half of a day during the second week of the program. But in addition to that, Sacred Hearts Academy, Scheidler College of Business, and the East-West Center are also all co-sponsoring a reception, and the girls, the Sacred Hearts Academy girls, will be honored there at that reception, just as our women, the Changing Faces women, will be.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now you're talking about service projects. What would they entail, and who would be designing, or who would be coming up with ideas for these service projects?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a little confusing. Service project for our women. So it's our women's service to the local community to go and interact with the girls and sort of hopefully inspire them, talk about their own personal stories and experiences, what it was like to start a business or social entrepreneurship enterprise, what challenges they faced, and what successes they had, and also, like, you know, who supported them along the way, and who their mentors were, and how people might mentor, the students might mentor others as they move along in their career.
That's amazing. Now, mentoring, I think that's also a component for the program for these women. Tell us about that.
Yes. So since 2008, the Changing Faces program has included a host mentorship program, and that program individually matches our incoming Changing Faces women with a woman here locally who has exemplified exceptional leadership skills and is also professionally relevant to our woman. We individually match them, and the host mentors agree to treat their mentee to dinner, to attend the reception co-sponsored by our two partners and ourselves, and to provide advice and support during the seminar. Some of our host mentorships, for instance, in 2010 we had a woman who ran a quilting cooperative in Mongolia. She taught unemployed women to quilt in a traditional Mongolian fashion, and then those quilts are in turn sold to tourists as well as to locals alike. And she was matched here. Her host mentor was the president of the local quilting association. So that woman took her to dinner, and then a couple nights later, actually, they hit it off so well that she invited 4 other women from the local quilting association to join the 2 of them again for another night out at dinner, and the 5 of them went out, and the local quilting association here provided our Changing Faces women with 2 bags of material scraps, as well as some traditional Hawaiian quilting patterns. So some of the women are very, very involved, but I think the key to that program is that we don't have a list. We don't pull people randomly and just arbitrarily match. We really make an effort to make certain that the match is professionally rewarding for both parties.
So if there are women out there, especially among our viewers, if they're interested in finding out more about how to become a mentor, what should they do?
Yeah, we are always looking for engaged women and women entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs here in Hawaii, and we're always interested in having them become more involved in the Changing Faces seminar. So for anyone who's interested in being a host mentor or being a part of our reception, we would love them to contact me directly or go on our website and send me an email or give me a ring by phone. But we're always looking for people. We may not match you this year because there might not be a woman that's a perfect match, but we'll certainly keep you in mind for the future.
That's great. And I guess when we come back from our break, we can talk a little bit about these local mentors and some of the other programs, some of the other really fascinating programs that you'll be doing after this Changing Faces seminar. So when we come back, we will continue our conversation with Liz about the Changing Faces Women Leadership Seminar and some of her other programs at the East-West Center. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Carlos Juarez, host of our show Global Connections here in the ThinkTech Hawaii series. And Global Connections, of course, very important because we live in a world that is increasingly interdependent. We bring global issues here to the table. We bring people, informed subject matter experts. We also underscore how important Hawaii is to the world, people who are making the difference in the world here. As you've seen from some of our shows, we bring experts, and joining us for today's show as an example, Patrick Branco, a U.S. diplomat who's from Kailua, grew up here and is now helping bring aloha to the world of diplomacy. Patrick, thank you again for joining us here on Global Connections, a show that helps keep us connected to the world. Anything you can add for us?
Yeah, it's great to be here. This is my second time on the show, and it's great to always talk about global issues, but in a Hawaii context, which is always wonderful.
Yeah, so stay tuned. Global Connections, part of our ThinkTech series. Aloha.
Welcome back. This is Alice Lee Hagen, Business Education Spotlight with ThinkTech Hawaii. We're talking about the Changing Faces and Women Leadership Seminar at the East-West Center. Liz, now before the break, you told us about the involvement of women entrepreneurs and perhaps business leaders here in the community. And of course, again, if there are viewers out there who are interested in becoming mentors, please contact Liz. Now, do you get returning mentors?
We do. There are, I think, at this point we have over 20 women who have participated, about 27 women who have participated as host mentors over the last few years. And some of those women have participated a couple times in a row. One woman actually wanted to participate every year. We've done that, run the program, but there wasn't a match for her one year, and so she wasn't matched. But some of our previous host mentors have been very highly placed. Colleen Hanabusa has actually been one of our host mentors. Chinoa Farnsworth with the Hawaii Angels venture. Wow. We've also had Kara from the Hawaii Community Fund. So many of the women are well placed, and they've all been very, very enthusiastically supportive of the Changing Faces program.
Do they have to be women mentors, or is that the preference?
Yes. So we visit, during our community site visits, we visit businesses that are examples of innovative entrepreneurship. And during that period of time, we're really just looking for businesses that are innovative in nature and that are relevant to our incoming cohort. And for that period of time, gender isn't important to us. So we visit both male and female owned and operated businesses. The host mentor program, though, is specific to women. So we're looking for a female leader.
Okay.
Sorry, gentlemen.
I'm sure there are other opportunities for them to participate in these West Center programs. You've run this seminar program for over 10 years, and you've got over 100 alumni. Tell us about some of the accomplishments of these women.
Well, one of the key features of the Changing Faces seminar is the formulation and implementation of a concrete action plan. And that action plan should be individually achievable and achievable within a year or two. And so some of the successes of our programs, of course, has been the successful implementation of those action plans. Other women have noted that the leadership training and the confidence building exercises have really prepared them to tackle projects that they had not previously considered. So a couple examples of our Changing Faces successes is Dana Doan, a 2007 Changing Faces alum. She had developed an ambitious action plan to launch a nonprofit, non-governmental organization in Vietnam that would provide support services for other local NGOs and also encourage volunteerism and charitable giving in Vietnam. And in August 2000, so she was a 2007 alum, and in August 2009, Dana launched the Lin Center for Community Development, and that nonprofit still exists today. More recently, Saliza Abdullah, a 2010 Changing Faces alum from Malaysia, partnered with a fellow 2010 Changing Faces alum from Indonesia, Nilam Sari, to launch new franchise restaurants of Nilam Sari's very, very popular fast food chain in Malaysia. So in addition to creating new jobs in Malaysia as a result of this seminar and their participation in it, they're also a really great example of the networking opportunities that this seminar provides, because these two women would never have met each other if they had not both participated in the 2010 program.
I was going to ask you, because one is from Malaysia, the other one from Indonesia. So is there a lot of these, do they continue the network, the communication, after they leave the program?
Yes, we encourage, before the women even arrive, we have built a private, a closed web page for the women to use as sort of a resource before they arrive and then after. But in addition, we also build a closed group Facebook page that is open to all Changing Faces alum but closed to the public. And that's really enables the women to keep in touch with each other over the years. So Saliza, for instance, when she came, her and her husband were really trying to have children, and she had not yet had any children. And so about 6 months later, she became pregnant for the first time, and she shared that with the group, and she posted photos, and she's now had her second child, and everybody has sent in, you know, Facebook congratulations. That just happened very recently. Other women, the Nilam Sari and Saliza, they communicated more directly to build this partnership, obviously, but they shared that success story also in Facebook. They posted photos of Nilam Sari at Saliza's opening of the first franchise in Malaysia. And so social media is so great in that way. It allows us to bridge so many distance gaps.
Exactly, but this must be also so rewarding for you to see the successes and women continuing to connect with each other and do great things.
Absolutely.
Now, I guess turning to some of your other programs, I mean, this one is coming up in July. Tell us what other programs you are involved in right now.
Well, there's two that I'd want to talk about. The first one is actually not my program, but my department's program, and that's the New Generation Seminar. It's also a leadership program run by the seminars department, and it's a 2-week intensive dialogue and travel program for politicians and policymakers in Asia, the Pacific, and the United States. And that program will run from September 21st to October 5th, and it will travel for a week here to Honolulu, and then it will go on to Miami, Florida, and to Washington, D.C. And this year's theme is particularly relevant to Hawaii because it looks at the challenges of climate change and how local communities adapt to climate change. So I think it would be a really great opportunity for Hawaii-based leaders. So we're hoping that local politicians and policymakers might apply to that program. I think the deadline for application is the end of the month.
Okay.
And then personally, I'm also in the midst of coordinating the 2014 Senior Journalist Seminar. And that program is a 21-day professional dialogue, study, and travel program that's intended to enhance media coverage and deepen the public debate regarding religion in the public sphere, specifically as it relates to U.S. Muslim relations. So I will be traveling with a group of 12 senior journalists from August 20th to September 11th, and we go to Washington, D.C., Boston, Massachusetts, here to Honolulu, Hawaii, and then on to Jakarta, Indonesia, and Delhi, India, all in 21 days. So it's very fast-paced, but the journalists learn a ton. It's really a passion project for me. The journalists are senior, so the requirements are such that they must have at least 10 years of experience. Many have a great deal more than that. So they're very knowledgeable in their field and well respected, which is always exciting, of course. But it's also just a issue that I think continues to be a challenge for the region. And like many of our projects, I think the East-West Center can assist in that dialogue.
That's a lot of project and traveling. I'm curious, when you go to, especially Asia, because you have so many alumni there, do you actually meet them, or do you have participants, say, from current program or maybe the upcoming journalism program to meet with some of your alumni of other East-West Center programs?
Absolutely. For almost every program, travel program that we offer, we usually plan an alumni reception in at least one of the cities. So this year for SJS, that will likely be in Jakarta, Indonesia. We have several senior journalists, specifically alumni in Jakarta, so we'll probably do that dinner or reception in Jakarta. But in addition, the alumni contribute in many other ways. So in other cities, we set up host family dinners where our journalists or our leaders or entrepreneurs might have dinner at a local family's home to experience either, you know, if the case may be an American family's home or an Indian family's home. And many of the people that we ask to do that are alumni of various programs of ours. Our alumni also help us sometimes secure certain speakers or meetings. If we visit, for instance, New York City and we want to meet with the New York Times and we're taking a group of journalists, then we'll ask our New York Times alumni to help facilitate those meetings.
That's great. It really helps to have 62,000 alumni spread out across the world. It makes it, I guess it does make things easier to a certain extent, right?
It really does.
You alluded earlier on when you were talking about the senior journalism program. This is work of passion, something that you're really passionate about. I guess my question for you is, what do you like about your work at the East-West Center?
You know, I'm regularly known for telling anyone who will listen about how much I love my work and believe in it at the East-West Center, and there are many reasons behind that. First, I get to explore topics that I'm really passionate about. We've covered topics like religion, democratic transition, climate change, energy security, and the U.S. presidential election. Those are just topics that I've covered in my years there. In addition, I've taken groups to meet with presidents of countries and military officials, Nobel Prize winning scientists, renowned academics, and very, very inspiring nonprofit leaders. I've also had the privilege and honor of traveling with some of the brightest and most interesting and enthusiastic policymakers, journalists, and entrepreneurs. And finally, I've traveled to places and had experiences that are simply like beyond what I ever imagined I would get to do. And I get to do all of that because of the work of the center. And I can't tell you how many times I am sitting in a meeting, or last year I was sitting on a local Sendai fisherman's oyster boat in the middle of his oyster farm, talking to him about the impact of the recent tsunami, and with a bunch of with 12 journalists. And in moments like that, I think to myself, I can't believe this is considered work. I should be paying someone else to have this experience and to teach the people that we work with what we offer them.
You truly have an amazing job. Very quickly, if there are two things that you want the audience to remember from our interview, what would they be?
The first is that Hawaii really is a local institution in addition to being regional and national, both in terms of what we put into the local economy, but also because of our ties to the local community in terms of partnerships, the fact that we often use the speaker resources here and expertise of Hawaii. The other thing that I would say is that we are open and welcome other partnerships and other involvement by the local community. So for those folks that want to be involved in our programs, if they are interested in our education programs or our seminars programs, then we welcome folks to reach out to us.
Thank you so much, Liz, for your time. It's great to have you here at the studio. For the audience who is interested in learning more about the East West Center and all the programs, or perhaps be a mentor at the Changing Faces seminar, you can get in touch with Liz through the East West Center website, which would be www.eastwestcenter.org, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you again. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week. Thank you.